Hi guys, so my name's Sophie and today I'm going to be doing a book haul. So this is, I think, the 5th book haul on this channel and possibly the smallest of all of the book hauls bar the mini book haul. This might be the last one of its sort for a while. I'm not going on a ban because I don't think that would help me in any way. But I've decided that next year my reading challenge, so this year I've got a challenge of reading 104 books, which I'm very close to finishing, but next year my challenge is going to be called Finish What You Started, and I'm going to try, and I say try because there's more than 104 books that this applies to, I'm going to try and finish all of the books on my bookshelves that I haven't read, and finish any series that I've started and didn't finish, and polish off my TBR bookshelf. I think the book that I'm gonna start with next year, I could be wrong about this because I keep putting it off. Basically my mum gave it to me in June and was like, Sophie, you have to read this book because it's a great book and you have to read it. And it's A Handmaid's Tale. And I just, like, I keep kind of pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. And, like, I need to read it. But, like, I've tried to read the first page, like, 5 times and the sentences are so long. Like, that doesn't usually bother me, but, like, a paragraph was 1 sentence and it just freaked me out a bit. My brain wasn't coping. But I want to read it. Actually, no, that's not going to be the first book I read next year. But something. I want to get through the books I have. I want to get through them and do them and be done. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to show you the stupid amount of books that I got. But not all of them were money spent, because I remembered that there's a library like 5 minutes from my house. I say remembered, I knew it was there, but it's not got the greatest selection of stuff. But I went in and saw a couple things and picked them up because it's cheaper. But anyway, let's get started. We'll start with the library books first, and the first book is The Complete Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is a graphic novel. It kind of focuses on the Second World War and this guy's dad's life and experience of going through the Holocaust, and like how he met his wife and how they coped and how the Holocaust affected their life and stuff. But the twist is that all the Jews are mice and the Nazis are cats. I gave this 4 stars. I've already read it, I finished it. This was the first book that I've read. I gave it 4 stars simply because quite often I couldn't read the writing because it's tiny. I'm not a huge fan of black and white graphic novels because it's very easy to get lost in them because you can't differentiate between things. It's especially hard to notice flashbacks if everything's in black and white or the same colour scheme. Like, that's why I like graphic novels that have a different colour scheme for like present day and flashback. And also kind of like them being mice didn't really add anything. Like, it didn't make it any more interesting. And it didn't even the book itself didn't even really give me as much detail as I wanted, and yet it dragged for quite a long time. I didn't really like any of the characters either, but that said, it is really good artwork and the storytelling is quite nice, and I thought it was obviously it's quite an exceptional bit of work. I don't know, it was good but not amazing, so 4 stars. The second book that I got from the library is She's Not Invisible by Marcus Sedgwick. I've heard the name Marcus Sedgwick a lot, but I don't think I've read any of his books before, and I really don't know what this book is about, but the cover intrigued me because it looks kind of like a contemporary but also a little bit creepy. I read the first couple of pages that start with the line, "One final time I told myself I wasn't abducting my little brother." Like, I read like 3 chapters stood in the library because it sounds really intriguing. So I don't know really what it's about, but pretty cover and intriguing first chapter. So looking forward to this one. Next I got White Cat by Holly Black, which again, an author that I know of and actually already own one of her books, but I've never read any of her work. And I feel really bad because I really should have by now. She's a really acclaimed YA kind of fantasy author, and she's really good friends with Cassandra Clare. So I've read The Iron Trial that she wrote with Cassandra Clare, but I haven't read any of her books that are just hers. And I don't really know what this is about. There was a Holly Black book in the library, and so my instinct was to go, there's a Holly Black book in the library and it means I don't have to pay. I will get that book. So this will be read before I have to return it to the library. So the fourth book that I got from the library is A Long Way Down by Nick Hornby, and this book I only really know about it because there was a film which had like Pierce Brosnan and the guy from Breaking Bad, which I haven't watched yet, in it, and it intrigued, that advert intrigued me, but I never saw the film because I knew it was a book and I wanted to read the book first. And basically the plotline is that these 4 strangers have all gone up to the roof of the same building to commit suicide, and by meeting each other they decide to make a pact that if they get to New Year's Eve and they still want to kill themselves, then they won't kind of try and stop them, I don't think, but that they're going to try and improve each other's lives in the course of that time. I think that's right. I'm intrigued to read this, and apparently Nick Hornby's a really great writer, but again, I've never read any of his work, so I'm not really sure. And the last book that I got from the library is What I Was by Meg Rossoff. I've read several of Meg Rossoff's books, which I've talked about in previous videos, and this was just one that I hadn't seen and hadn't read before, and it kind of sounds like a love story, but a love story that's a little bit fucked up, which is usually how her books go, so I'm not too surprised. This one was shortlisted for the Carnegie Medal, so, and the Costa Book Awards, so it's got to be good. So I'm intrigued. Now we move on to the books that I actually bought, and we'll start with the book that I'm reading, which is the Magnus Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare and Sarah Rees Brennan and Maureen Johnson. And I am currently, oh look, Arial bookmark, 234 pages in, which is like there, so about halfway. I'm liking it. Some of these stories I'm really, really loving. Like, the stories themselves I'm really enjoying. There are a couple little bits that are annoying me slightly, but that's because I'm really picky. So there's some lazy character naming, and there's some not exactly thought out, like, between each individual story's got a really thought out plotline, but it's like no one really kind of looked at the life of Magnus Bane and went, so how does this all fit together? They just kind of gave people chunks of his life and said, you can do what you want with it. Which, also, it's not even the same size as the rest of the books. It's about 3mm taller. And it's in hardback. Like, these are in this weird paper hardback. This is in, like, I don't know. My Cassandra Clare shelf is just gonna look very higgledy-piggledy. It's a great word. But yeah, the book itself I'm really enjoying. I think it's great. If you haven't read Infernal Devices and Up to City of Lost Souls, don't read this book. Don't do it. Don't do it. Start with Clockwork Angel, then Clockwork Prince, then Clockwork Princess, then City of Bones, City of Ashes, Glass, Fallen Angel, Lost Soul, Heavenly Fire, this one. Because I think that's the easiest way to get into them. The Infernal Devices are supposedly easier to get into. I don't know, I got into City of Bones really easily. But yeah, so this is definitely a companion book, don't read it first. I then got Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. This is the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series, and it's a bit chunkier than the last 3, which I'm glad about. Like, I like books that are small occasionally, but I prefer a chunky book. And hopefully it's gonna get better now. I liked the first one. I thought the second one was really good. I liked the third one. So hopefully the standard will go back up again. There were a lot of issues that I had with the third one. Intrigued to see where this one goes, because I found, like I said, I found the third one a little bit predictable because of these really annoying tropes. But hopefully this one will be good. For those of you that haven't read the Vampire Academy books, it's kind of about this girl, Rose Hathaway, who is a Dampmere, which is like half human, half vampire, who's like trained all her life to protect the Moroi vampires, specifically her friend Lissa, who is a vampire princess. You try and explain these books and they sound so ridiculous. But yeah, they're really good. Like, Rose is a really kick-ass character, and the storylines are quite good despite some predictability in a couple of the books. They're not like the world's best books, but they're kind of easy reads, which I quite like. Next is a book that I have been wanting to get since April, because I saw a post on Tumblr from the author who was like 19, and she was like, "So guys, if you followed me on Tumblr for a while, you'll know that I wrote a book. It's published. Here's my book." And the premise of Solitaire I don't know much about, so I don't really know what it's about. But the back of the book says this is not a love story, which kind of, if you have to say that, probably is. And Alice Osman sounds like a really wonderful girl. I don't know why I'm calling her a girl, she's older than me. Person. But I follow her on Tumblr now, and she's just really sweet, and she answers all these questions about her books, and I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna kind of go and ask loads of questions about her book, because it sounds really interesting and the cover's beautiful, and my last name is featured in this book, which I can't tell is a good thing or a bad thing, because it sounds like the person with my last name is a bit of a prick. So they have a tendency to do that. Like, Holden is not an inherently prickish name. Or maybe it is, maybe you guys think I'm a prick. That would be surprising. Anyway, book. Interesting. Will read. You should read. Next up, I have a book that I'm really excited about. I didn't know it was really a book, but basically, if you know me or have watched some of my videos, then you know that I quite like Shakespeare, and of Shakespeare's plays, my favourite for a very, very long time was Romeo and Juliet. Not because of the love story, but so much because of kind of the, like, everybody else. Like, Romeo and Juliet, to me, were not the interesting bit of that story. They were really dull and really predictable. The bit that was interesting was all of the other characters. So, Mercutio, who is so obviously in love with Romeo, it's ridiculous. And, like, Benvolio, and my favourite character, who we never even fucking meet, Rosaline. I just, like, the premise of her character seems so sad. Like, here's this boy who is in love with you, supposedly, and then your cousin comes home and he falls in love with her, and they go and get married and die. And kind of, you never know if Rosaline reciprocates his feelings, you don't even know if she's aware of it, but it just, I quite like that as an idea. And someone wrote a book about it. Obviously it's futuristic, it's not set in Shakespearean, Victorian, Elizabethan, not Victorian, Elizabethan times. But it just... I'm so excited to read this. I really love the idea of the character of Rosaline, so I'm very excited to read a kind of interpretation of her, because in this, her and Romeo, who's called Rob, were in a relationship, and then her cousin comes home and he kind of falls head over heels for her cousin, and so good. I'm really intrigued. I'm really fucking intrigued. The penultimate book is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Madsen. So this book has kind of been blown up on BookTube over the summer. It's now November, which means it's appropriate for me to read it now. I've wanted to read it for a while, but never really got around to it. Like, there were other books that I felt more need to buy. But I have gotten around to it now. Basically, two best friends, and one of them goes missing, or kind of goes away. And the thing that's left in her place is a to-do list for her best friend of like fun things and scary things and like things that will make her summer more enjoyable. And I think her friend kind of goes through the list hoping that when she gets to the end of it she'll find her friend. So I'm intrigued. Also, quite like Kelly Clarkson, so the title. And lastly, I have a Christmassy book for next month. My True Love Gave to Me, which the UK edition is so much prettier than the American edition, just saying. Which is never usually true. Like, Americans usually have a nicer cover, which sucks, but this is so much nicer than the one with the little figures skating. Like, it's got hot pink pages and gold and fairy lights and pretty. Basically, this is a compilation of 12 short stories by a multitude of very famous YA authors. I've heard mixed things, like apparently some of the stories are much better than others, but Christmas stories, I am intrigued, and contemporary romances, that's great. I'm just being really amused by the thing that the ribbon's doing right now. Anyway, this is the last book that I got in this book haul. So down below, tell me if you have kind of read any of these books, what you thought of them, and like what books have you guys recently acquired, purchased, borrowed from a friend, stolen from your neighbour's back garden. Possibly not the last one because I think that's illegal. But yeah, so I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye!